Hello guys, Dr.Pitanger here, and today we are gonna do a little tier list of Foldartals in IS4. So the way Foldartals work is that you have top Foldartals and bottom Foldartals, and when you combine them you create an effect on your map. And if the Foldartals are the same color, so for example if you combine a top blue Foldartals with a bottom blue Foldartal, then you create a resonance, and this resonance will be an additional effect. So the tiers will be very simple: S, A, B, C, and D. So S tier will be for one specific Foldartal that is way above the rest in my opinion, and that you should absolutely pick whenever you have the opportunity to do so, above everything else. A is a very good Foldartal that you should probably pick over most other Foldartals. B tier will be regular Foldartals that are not good, not bad, they are just there. They can be very useful and will often be enough for most of your runs. C tier will be for pretty bad Foldartals that you should not pick unless you really need it at some point. And D tier will be for Foldartals you definitely not want to pick. So let's start. And we're gonna start with Departure. So Departure is a top Foldartals and is one of the two multicolor Foldartals. It randomly selects two nodes. This can be very useful because multicolor Foldartals are pretty strong. The fact that you can have a resonance with any other Foldartal you pick is extremely strong. However, of course, there are some unwanted effects to select two nodes that you absolutely don't want to select. This is why you should probably use Departure when you're near the end of a floor or on floor 6. So I think it's a pretty strong Foldartal. Weirdly enough, it's probably one of the hardest one to evaluate because, well, it's so random, it's so unpredictable that evaluating it makes no real sense. So I would put it either low A tier or high B tier. We're gonna see. I'm probably gonna put it at low A tier, we'll see. So next one is a bottom Foldartal. It's Respite. Turn the selected node into a safe house. So safe houses are, weirdly enough, not as good as scout nodes, so it's not a bad one. Like the Concord is increase the life point cap by 2, which can be useful in the early stages of a run, so you have more than 7 health and you can start gaining more max health points. I would definitely put this in B tier. It's clearly not one of the best Foldartals, it's clearly not one of the worst. Safe houses still are pretty good. You can elite to an operator, you can increase your squad size. It's definitely not the worst one. There are way worse Foldartals that you can pick. Alright, next we have Advent. Advent is the second and last multicolor Foldartal. It selects one node of the player choice. This is definitely an A tier Foldartal. The simple fact that it's basically Originium or Eye or Hunter but better makes it an extremely strong Foldartal. You can create an emergency whatever you want, you can create a safe house wherever you want, you can create a scout node wherever you want. The only issue is that it doesn't work that well with Migrate. Usually with Migrate you want a better reward, right? So it's pretty unfortunate, but it's okay. There's so much things you can do with Advance that, I mean, it's alright to not work with some Foldartals. Next we have Anticipate. Anticipate, I'm gonna put it like either low C tier or high D tier, I'm not sure. The issue with Anticipate is that it doubles the Originum Ingot gained from the selected node. But gaining Originum Ingot in IS4 is mostly gonna be in battles, and if you get it from a green node, that means you have probably used Satisfy or you've probably used Delight first. So that means Anticipate is most of the time directly dependent on another Foldartal. And you know what you could use instead of Anticipate in this case? Well, you could use another Satisfy or you could use another Delight. So Anticipate, in my opinion, is literally like Delight or Satisfy but worse, because it's basically dependent on them. I usually never pick Anticipate because, don't get me wrong, you can get some value out of Anticipate, but it's very hard to get most of the time. Most of the Originum Ingots you're gonna get are from battles, and since it's a green Foldartal, it's actually pretty hard to get a lot of Originum from it. I'm gonna put it in D because, well, most of the time you're like gonna clear a stage, you're gonna get like 3 Originum Ingot from it, and you're gonna get 3 more from Anticipate, so yeah, not really that good. Alright, next we have Arch. So Arch is one of the three, select 3 stages, and since it's the green one, it's gonna be B tier, like lower end of B tier. It's not a bad Foldartal, but usually green Foldartals are among the weakest one, I would say. Blue and red one are definitely much better. So don't get me wrong, you can get a lot of things with it. If you get, for example, love with it, it's gonna be very powerful for sure. But at the same time, saying a Foldartal is good because you get another broken Foldartal isn't really interesting, right? So yeah, I'm gonna put it low B tier. Beast is the second one. It's pretty much like Arch, but it's a blue one, and that's very different because that means it works with Migrate. And the simple fact that it works with Migrate means it's pretty middle or even high A tier. It's a very strong Foldartal that you can use to get more anti-interference or hope with Plunder. You can get more emergency ops. You can get more bosky passages. So yeah, extremely strong Foldartal in my opinion. Next we have Canopy. So Canopy is select one encounter of the player's choice. That's not really good at all. Encounters are probably among the worst nodes you can find. Usually I would use Canopy in a bosky passage when I know half of the last nodes are encounters that restore all your life points, you know, which is very bad most of the time. And I would use this in order to transform it into a rogue trader. So it has some uses, I suppose, but it's really not a good Foldartal. I would put it very high D tier. It's one of the weakest top green Foldartal, and green Foldartal again are among the worst ones, so yeah. Next we have Confess. Confess is one of the 2 Foldartals that allows you to get relics, and it's from a combat op, which is usually very good because you want to take combat ops, right? Combat ops give you Originum Ingot, they give you more vouchers, they give you more EXP. So Confess is an extremely good Foldartal. There's absolutely not denying this. It's absolutely the top of A tier. It's best if you can manage to use it with red Foldartals that give you resonance for multiple nodes, right? Like for example, Warrior or Shaman or Snow Priest, these kind of nodes. So yeah, extremely good Foldartal. Next we have Console. So Console is gain 2 hope, and if it's a resonance, you gain 4 hope. This is pretty good. It is, weirdly enough, this is probably one of the weakest red Foldartal, but gaining 4 hope is actually not that bad. And if you can manage to have multiple nodes selected, then you're gonna have 4 hope, 8 hope, 12 hope if you get a Snow Priest with it. So it can become extremely powerful. I'm gonna put it top of B tier. Alright, next we have Clan, which is probably the weakest bottom red Foldartal in my opinion, because gaining 2 life points for each selected node is not a really good effect. Usually life points won't allow you to win runs, so for this I think I'm gonna put it like in high D tier. I definitely don't want to pick this most of the time, so yeah. Next we have Debate. Debate is one of the 3 fighting Foldartals and is either the second best one or the best one depending on people's opinion. It's definitely at the TBD top of A tier, along with Sing. Being able to reduce 30% of the redeployment time of any operator is absolutely broken. If you can manage to have 1 or even 2 debates before entering the final boss's stage, then it becomes a free stage basically. So yeah, definitely pick this Foldartal whenever you see it. Next we have Satisfy. So Satisfy will be probably our first C tier. The issue with Satisfy is that you either have Arch or Earth, which don't really come really often because they are pretty rare Foldartals, right? Or this is simply gonna be gain 4 Originum Ingot. So that's the main issue. It's really dependent on very good top green Foldartals. And what did I say about green Foldartals? Usually you want to pick red or blue Foldartal if you have an option to do so. So for this reason, I would put Satisfy in C tier. Of course, if I already have like an Arch or an Earth, I'm gonna pick a Delight for sure. Oh wait, this is actually... Never mind, this is actually Delight. You know what, I'm gonna put them pretty much near to each other because they pretty much do the same thing. Delight gives you 8 Originum Ingots and Resonance gives you 2 Hope. And Satisfy gives you 4 Originum Ingots and 4 more whenever you enter the selected node. Satisfy is better if you can get like Earth or if you can get Arch. And Delight is very dependent on if you can enter said stages. And the issue with Delight is that, I mean, this is obviously good with like, if you want to enter a bosky passage and then a shop and then something like a safe house, for sure. But when does this happen? Not very often, right? So this is why I'm gonna put them in C tier. Usually the value is gonna be a bit better for Delight rather than for Satisfy. So this is why I'm gonna put Delight higher than Satisfy, but that's it. Doubt is by far the weakest Foldartal in the game. Lost and found nodes serve only one purpose, getting to ending 2, and that's it. There's never a time where I want to tell myself, oh yeah, let's spend a Foldartal in order to get another Foldartal in exchange for a Foldartal. This is literally getting -1. And if you get the other Lost and Found that allows you to trade for a collectible, then you're gambling. You're gambling on getting this Lost and Found node precisely, and even then, there's no guarantee that you're gonna get a good collectible. So yeah, I usually don't pick Lost and Found. In my opinion, this is the weakest Foldartal in the game, and you usually don't want to get this. The collapse reduction effect from the Concord isn't really that high on top of this. Like, usually there's a lot of Foldartals that have a broken resonance effect, like Migrate, for example, that I'm gonna talk about real soon. But for Lost and Found, it's only increased the collapse reduction effect by 2 instead of 1. That's so weak. That's actually such a weak resonance effect. Anyway, next we have Earth. Earth is select all non-fighting nodes. So obviously this is the strongest top green Foldartal. So just for this, I believe this is gonna be in A tier. I'm not sure exactly where. Probably here. If you can manage, for example, to get Delight or Satisfied, then it's gonna be extremely strong, right? But the issue is it's very dependent on getting these one, and again, if you can manage to, for example, get Love or Surprise instead, do you want to use Delight, Satisfy, or do you want to use Love, or do you want to use Surprise? In my opinion, you definitely want to use Love or Surprise. While it's a good Foldartal, the fact that it's very dependent on other Foldartals is pretty weird. Next we have I, which is probably the weakest single node Foldartal in the game. It's only select one node to the right. It's very weak for a specific reason, is that sometimes you want to select a node that is above or below you and spend one entire interference index to access this node. And with I, you cannot do that. You can do that with Originium, you can do that with Advance, you can do that with Hunter, but you can't do that with I. And for this, I think I'm gonna put I at the, like probably D tier. Again, it's definitely the weakest top green Foldartal, so yeah, probably never pick this. So next we have Hero. Hero is select all combat nodes. Weirdly enough, this isn't that great, because a lot of top red Foldartals already select quite a lot of Foldartals. For example, Warrior selects 2 Foldartals, Snow Priest selects 3 Foldartals, Shaman selects 3 Foldartals as well. So, I mean, Hero isn't bad, of course, but is it that much better than all the other one? I don't think so. Weirdly enough, it's probably not that great. It's one of the only Foldartal that you can probably use a resonance even with other colored Foldartal, which is pretty weird. I would probably put it like at the top of B tier. Again, why am I putting Earth in the middle of A tier and Hero at the top of B tier, even though I said multiple times that I think green Foldartals are worse than red Foldartals? Because green bottom Foldartals are worse than red bottom Foldartals. Again, there's so many top red Foldartals that will do basically the same as Hero most of the time, and you're gonna get the same value out of them. While Earth is the only one that allows you to get some value out of all of these. Well, with Arch too, but that's about it. So that's why I'm only putting it in high B tier. Alright, next we have Human. So Human is definitely A tier, that's for sure. It's, in my opinion, one of the strongest Foldartals, one of the strongest top Foldartal, because it works with Migrate. Like, Human and Migrate is by far the strongest resonance you can get in the entire game mode. And even if you don't use it with Migrate, you can still use it with like Plunder, for example. You can use it to get more emergency operations with Hunt. You can use it with Reproduce in order to get more scout nodes. Like, it's extremely strong. So yeah, this is definitely going A tier, definitely here too. Next we have Hunt. So Hunt is a good Foldartal in general. Transforming a node into an emergency is usually a pretty good idea. Like, even if it's a combat and it becomes an emergency, it's already not that bad, but if you transform an encounter and make it an emergency, then it's actually even greater. So I would probably put it at the top of B tier. It's a very good Foldartal. It's just that it can go into higher A tier because usually when you enter, like for example for 5, you actually don't want emergency unless you have a broken ass run, because emergency in the 5th floor are actually very difficult. So you definitely want to use hunt in the early stages in a run and not that much in the late stages. Next we have hunter, which is one of the weakest top red Foldartal in the game. I'm gonna put it in C tier, simply because Warrior does the same but better, Shaman does the same but better, Snow Priest usually does the same but better. So yeah, it's definitely low C tier. I'm not gonna put it in D tier with I, simply because your win cons can usually be Sing or Debate or even Silence. And the simple fact that this works with Sing, Silence, or Debate means that I can't put it in D tier, if that makes sense. Next we have Light, randomly select 3 non-combat nodes. This is basically Arch, but worse, because with Arch you get 3 nodes, including 1 that you have selected, and Light you get 3 nodes, and they are all random. You only know that they are non-combat nodes. So it's literally Arch, but worse. So for this it's probably gonna be C tier. Next we have Love, so it's basically the equivalent of Confess, but for encounters and with the resonance effect to transform them into wish fulfilled. So I really like this Foldartal. It can be used in numerous situations. It can be used again at the end of a boss key passage if you have an encounter and you transform it into a wish fulfilled, because you know this encounter is gonna be the restore all life points encounter. You can use it if you have no choice but to go into a lost and found node. You can use it in numerous situations. I think it's either top of B tier or low A tier. Yeah, I would put it in low A tier, I would say. It's not as strong as Confess. Alright, Migrate is S tier by far. This is easily the strongest Foldartal in the entire game. The base effect is already good because boss key passages are the strongest nodes in the entire game mode, and then the resonance effect is increase your anti-interference by 6. This is absolutely broken. I don't even understand why they made this so broken. It could have been increase the anti-interference index by 2 and it still would have been broken. But then they made it so that it increases the anti-interference index by 6? If you have this relic that uncaps your anti-interference index and you have human, you can easily go beyond 15 anti-interference index with this alone. If you get human and Migrate, you have 1, basically. So yeah, Migrate goes in S and it's gonna be the sole and only Foldartal in this tier. Alright, next we have Nest, which is probably the weakest bottom Foldartal in the mode, I would say. I would probably put it, yeah, I would put it in high D or low C tier. I really don't like this Foldartal. It's basically like Plunder, but infinitely worse because you can get Hope, you can get anti-interference index. Yeah, it's very bad. Next we have Originium. Select 1 node, period. Very simple effect. Basically like Hunt, but better. Because first it's a blue node, and second it's select 1 node, period. So I think it goes probably like near Arch. The fact that it can be used with so many things is actually so strong. Weirdly enough, it is one of the weakest Foldartal to use with Migrate because you're only gonna get 1 boss key passage, and even with this, only 1 boss key passage and plus 6 anti-interference index is such a strong effect. But in the worst case, you can get like 1 emergency orb, you can get 1 safe house, you can get 1 scouting node, you can even get like simply 1 anti-interference index with Plunder. It's not bad. It's definitely not something that is outrageous, but it's pretty good. Next we have Outcast. Select all next combat nodes. It is very difficult Foldartal to use because usually it makes sense to use this on nodes that are connected to each other where you have to spend anti-interference index. But at the same time, do you really want to spend a lot of anti-interference index for red resonances? Again, red resonances are what? Gain hope with console, gain life point with cry, increase life point with a sight. So it's usually not that good of an effect. Usually it will be pretty much the same as Hunt, weirdly enough. So I'm only gonna put it like high C tier. The fact that it can be used with Sing, Silence, Debate, all of this stuff, of course means it can't be D tier, obviously. But still, it's not really good. Alright, Patrol. Patrol is right above Nest. It's clearly not very good. Reducing collapse effect is fine and all, but there's already so many relics in the game that allow you to do this. and most of the time, if you're not a bad player, you should be able to cope with the bad effect from collapse value increase. In combat, there's only ever 2 bad effects from collapse increase, which are DP generation reduction, which is extremely bad and probably the worst effect overall, or your operators are deployed with less health, which usually isn't really a problem because, well, you can heal your operators. I think patrol isn't really that good. It can be used to remove a bad effect and you're gonna be happy with this most of the time, but again, you can even like simply remove an effect that will have no effect whatsoever and you're gonna cry. So yeah, I'm gonna put it in D tier. I would say Nest is even worse, but Patrol is really not that great either. Plunder on the other hand is probably, I would say, high B tier or low A tier. I would say high B tier. When you see Plunder for the first time, you tell yourself, okay, what the hell, why is this so bad? Like gaining 1 Originum Ingot and 1 Hope. Until you realize that with the Resonance you actually also get 1 Anti-Interference Index, which means you can use it with pretty much any blue Foldartal and navigate through the map, go pretty much everywhere you want, and you're still gonna not lose any Anti-Interference Index, which is actually pretty great most of the time. So I really like using this Foldartal. Alright, Rage. I'm not gonna lie, I don't watch a lot of pro IS players, so I can't tell for sure if they use Rage often. But in my opinion, Rage is a very bad Foldartal. The base effect isn't that great, gaining a 4 or 5 star temporary recruitment because, well, it's random, so you can't choose, so you might get something that is absolutely useless. The resonance effect is the same but with a 6 star, so you might get a Skadi, for example, or a Carnelian, which usually you won't want, right? But the worst thing about this isn't even that. The worst thing is that it's a green Foldartal. So that means that you absolutely have to use it, for example, with I, which again is another bad Foldartal, because if you use it, for example, with Light, which selects non-combat nodes, or with Arch, or with Earth, that all select non-combat nodes, then that means you're gonna have the chance to get a random operator only if the non-combat node ends up being a combat node. So you get an encounter that actually transforms into a combat node. For example, the encounter where you get the knights to fight. So this works in this case, but what if you enter an encounter and it's not a combat? Then you literally waste your Foldartal, and that's so bad. That's actually so bad. So for this, I'm gonna put it, you know what, I'm gonna put it here. It's very bad in my opinion. I usually never want to get Rage. There's a chance this Foldartal does absolutely nothing. Feel free to comment on if you absolutely pick Rage when you see it, but I usually never do it. I've had some very bad experiences with it. Alright, next we have Silence. All fighting Foldartals are gonna be A tier, that's for sure. Silence is probably the weakest one, because while it's not that bad, it's not as broken as Sing or Debate. I'm gonna put Silence near the middle of A tier. It's a really good Foldartal for sure, but it's not as broken as Sing, in my opinion. Next we have Reproduce. So scouting nodes are among the strongest nodes in the game mode, because you could read it as gains 1 Anti-Interference Index, gains 3 Hope, gains around 3 or 4 Originum Ingot, and gain a voucher of your choice. This is extremely strong. On top of that, the Resonance effect gives you 2 Hope, which is also very good, so I'm not sure if I'm gonna put it at the very high B or low A tier. Like, it feels weird because Plunder is also very good. I think I'm gonna put it at the very high B tier. All these 3 nodes, these 3 bottom nodes are extremely good, but I think these ones are usually better. Okay, you know what? Let's evaluate them. So Scar and Void. Scar and Void cost you 4 collapse value, 1 node. All of this in order to get the Triskar Helm for the 4th ending or for the 2nd ending, and it also gives you 3 hope, because when you get the Triskar Helm you also get 3 hope, and technically you also reduce the collapse value when you get the resonance. So it's really bad, obviously. In a way, this can be used, right? 3 hope is actually not that bad, I suppose, if you desperately need some hope. I suppose you can go in a Lost and Found node, get the gray Foldartals there, and spend them later in order to get 3 hope. I think 2 nodes and collapse value just to get 3 hope isn't that good, so I'm gonna put them in D. But, I mean, these don't really count, so yeah, let's not talk too much about them. Alright, Shaman. Shaman is select one combat node and randomly selects 2 combat nodes. Again, the thing with red resonances is that you're not gonna need a lot of nodes to get resonance from red Foldartals. It's still better than Outcast or Hunter for sure, so it's gonna be in B tier, but that's about it. I don't think it's that great. I'm gonna put Snow Priest basically nearby it, so yeah, around here. Alright, Shrub is basically I, but better, because it selects all adjacent nodes to the right. So the idea behind this Foldartal is that it's basically like layout, but better because it selects all nodes on the right, unlike Outcast that selects all combat nodes on the right. So for this, it's obviously at least B tier. I don't think it's as strong as, for example, Beast, and it's obviously usually better than Originium, even though these are not really the same, right? I'm gonna put this like around, yeah, here, probably. Wait, didn't I put Silence there? Wait. Oh, never mind. This is Silence. Alright, so Silence goes here. So this is Recite. Recite is a bit like Cry. You gain 4 life points when you enter a node, and you increase your max life points by 2 if you get a resonance. While Cry is you gained 2 life points, which is basically worse, but at the same time you can increase your max life points, so it's not entirely useless. So I would put it like in very, very low C tier. Usually Cry and Recite are both red Foldartals you definitely don't want to pick. If you absolutely need to pick one of them, definitely pick Recite. Cry is just bad. You know what? I'm actually gonna put it lower, I think. Yeah. Alright, Sing. Sing, in my opinion, is probably going low S tier. Initially, I wanted to only put Migrate in S tier, but I think I'm gonna pick Sing in low S tier. Some people may disagree and say Debate is actually better than Sync. I actually think Sing is better than Debate. There's so many operators that benefit from having a lot of attack speed, like for example Ray, who can shoot 2 or 3 more rounds if you have more attack speed, or for example Ines that will generate more DP if you have more attack speed, or Surtur, who is gonna be a ground machine gun if you have a lot of attack speed. I'm not even talking about anomalies like Golden Glow. So in my opinion, yeah, Sing goes near Migrate, and that's about it. Alright, Stone. Stone is randomly select 2 nodes that have 1 node above or below them. This is not really good. It's already random in the first place, and on top of that, you will mostly get value from like 1 of them at most. So most of the time it's gonna be Originium but worse, because it will be random. While Originium selects only 1 node, this that selects 2 will usually turns out to be worse. Sure, you can quote-unquote manipulate the RNG while you reach the end of a floor, but that means that you're already locking some options by doing so. The uses are different than Originium, but I'm gonna put it near Originium. It works really well with Migrate if you can somehow manipulate the RNG a bit, so I don't think it deserves lower than B tier. I'm gonna pick Tree for now. Tree is pretty much the same thing, but it's only 1 node that has a path above or below it, and it's not random, so it's strictly Originium but worse. So this one has to go in C tier. It's probably the weakest top blue Foldartal in the game. Surprise! Surprise is an extremely powerful node. The resonance is divide the cost of all items by 2, which is unbelievably strong. You can use this in so many cases. You can use this to get a shop on floor 5, spend all your Originium ingot there, then steal from the shop on floor 6, for example. You can even use it on floor 6 to reduce the cost of the item of the shop before buying them, then refreshing it and stealing everything after you refreshed it. It's very versatile, right? So for this, I think it's probably going either A or B tier. I usually like Surprise a lot. I would say like here. Sure. Warrior is select 1 combat node and another combat node is randomly selected. So it's basically Hunts, but better. So for this, it's probably gonna be B tier. Compared to Snow Priest, Snow Priest is gonna be select 3 random nodes. Warrior is gonna be select 1 node that you want and 1 another random one. So there are cases where Snow Priest is gonna be better and cases where Warrior is gonna be better. So I'm probably gonna put them next to each other. Yeah. And next we have Water. So Water is select 1 non-combat node of your choice. So again, it's literally Originium but worse. So since it's pretty much like Hunt, I'm gonna put it next to Hunt. Yeah, and there you have it. There's probably some things you may disagree, some things you may agree to an extent. For example, you may disagree on Advent or Departure and say the flexibility on them isn't enough to warrant them an A tier spot. I do think they deserve A tier simply because of the flexibility on the contrary. Some people may prefer Debate over Sing, for example. That's okay. Some people may think Anticipate is actually better. Some people may say their Delight or Satisfy are better. That's alright. I mean, it all depends on everyone's experience after all, so feel free to disagree with me in the comments. So thank you for watching and see you in the next video.